Many thanks to the channel members, Rafi Ultron and Brian Bierce, for their valuable support to this project. That said, let's begin with the video. Leping approaches the dragoness and tells her he hopes she likes what he prepared, while reflecting on how dragons eat, watching her chew slowly and cautiously. However, she was in a deep, almost dreamlike state, fighting an epic battle within. At a certain moment, the dragoness, in her original form, looks at the Toadmaster, who then comments that it's no coincidence she's known as the Lady of Beasts. Before her stood a mountain of bodies, and Amelia asks her opponent if he will continue to fight. Gravely wounded, he replies that it's unnecessary, accepts his defeat with honesty, and declares himself ready to be devoured, thus becoming nourishment for her evolution. After uttering those words, he collapses. His fall causes all the bodies, including his own, to disappear. Amelia, also wounded, murmurs to herself that if she cannot even overcome a defeat, then she doesn't deserve to serve her mistress. Even if she has failed, she remains the Lady of Beasts. Immediately, her body begins to radiate light, invoking her power and ushering in a new stage of evolution, the Golden Master Dragon. Meanwhile, outside, Amelia screams, prompting Leping to ask if she wants some water. The queen, upon seeing her, responds that it's not necessary, that the food was enough. She adds that now she needs time to adapt, and if she succeeds, she'll gain great benefits. She reflects that even she, when she had the Demon King level, barely endured the impact of those spicy dumplings. She knows that even with the support of the contract, tasting that culinary blessing is truly challenging for Amelia. Then, the hero accepts Elizabeth's words, assuring that as long as it benefits Amelia, there's no problem. At that moment, the dragoness was undergoing a process of evolution, reaching the Demon King's highest level. Elizabeth, witnessing it, affirms that only then will she earn the right to be her companion, and that if she fails, she must simply rise again. Amelia, with tears in her eyes, deeply thanks her master's dedication. She hugs her and bursts into tears. The queen embraces her tenderly, asking her to calm down, that it's all over now. Leping, watching them, comments that she now looks much more lively and concludes that protein helps in recovery. However, Amelia looks at him somewhat annoyed and thinks she hates to admit it, but now she understands why her mistress became interested in that man. His power is unfathomable. Moreover, she understands what it means to eat failure, that is, to savor it. Because to reach a new level, one needs a stimulus, or a threat. But this time, she won't be defeated. She will help her mistress defeat that legendary hero. Then she asks for more delicious food, ordering another serving. Leping is delighted and starts laughing, commenting that it reminds him of the first night Elizabeth appeared. The queen, upon hearing him, denies that ever happened, as she doesn't consider herself a glutton. Outside the house, Alpha returns to her human form, but before more can be known, a new day dawns. A bulge begins to appear under the sheets where the hero and the queen were sleeping. Something starts moving beneath the covers, waking Leping. Then the dragoness appears, immediately taking human form and announcing that it's her turn now, scaring Leping, who is pushed out of bed. Additionally, Amelia informs that she'll handle her master's night companionship and reflects that if her mistress hadn't forcibly locked her in the contract space, she wouldn't have left her sleeping in her place. The man, somewhat bewildered, responds that it's fine, that he had to get up anyway, and tells them to keep resting while he prepares breakfast. As he leaves, the queen watches him and then smiles, wondering if he still refuses to take the next step with her, since he always uses the excuse of waiting until the end of the month. Either way, she doesn't believe him and declares that she'll have him before the month ends. After preparing breakfast, which looks more like lunch, the hero sees them and comments that he was just about to call them, revealing that the queen was on her mount, which leads Leping to think that Amelia truly is her battle companion. On the other hand, outside the house, Wang Kai comments that everything feels strange, wondering where Alpha is. Meanwhile, the hero washes the dirty dishes, while the queen and the dragoness sit on the sofa. Amelia expresses that now she understands everything and learns how her mistress lived there. Even so, she wonders why she says she keeps getting better. She adds that to her, her mistress is the most powerful being. But Elizabeth replies that there's always a higher mountain. She illustrates it with a mental image of herself climbing a peak, only to discover upon arrival that there are even taller ones. She then says that's how it feels. Amelia questions how there can be a mountain taller than another, reminding her that she masters all existing magic. The queen explains that when one climbs the highest peak, one realizes how small they are. Also, in this world, there are countless things they still don't understand. As an example, she mentions a TV series. She confesses to having watched it dozens of times and having learned a lot, but still not fully understanding it. She reveals that the series is called Journey to the West. Amelia, observing and listening to her mistress, wonders if there's an emptiness within her. She thinks about the characters in that story, the three pure ones, supreme Taoist deities, the great immortal Genuine, the Buddhist symbol of eternity and wisdom, the Jade Emperor, the Tathagata Buddha, and finally, the Bodhisattva Guanyin. She reflects, with some insecurity, that she can't understand all of that, and that if she were in the world of that series, she would be nothing more than food for the so-called golden-winged Great Peng. That amount of data overwhelms her, causing her to faint, which Elizabeth finds understandable and tells her to take her time, that she'll get used to it soon. After cleaning, Lepping asks if Amelia fell asleep again. Then he asks his queen if she wants to go out and get some sun, to which she cheerfully replies, yes. Outside, the hero throws the frisbee for Wang Kai to catch, telling him it's a new model made especially for him. The puppy thinks his master finally thought of him and jumps excitedly to catch it. However, he misses and gets hit on the head. He falls to the ground and activates his defense system, taking a combat stance. He reflects that the frisbee is a masterpiece, and that if he manages to return it, his master will praise him. He starts trying to catch it with all his resources until he gets frustrated and decides to use his black hole attack. But when he fires it, the disc changes position. Wang Kai uses more of his technology, detecting advanced technology and the presence of intelligent life. He notices that the disc is made with his master's advanced polishing technique, and that's why he can't predict its movements. He confesses that this is exciting, that it's been a long time since he found a worthy rival, and that he's about to exceed his emotional code. Then he deploys his weapons and shouts that now they will decide who's the best. He starts destroying everything around him to catch the frisbee. Lepping, seeing him, is surprised and thinks Wang Kai is having a lot of fun. He adds that when Wang Kai returns it, it will be Elizabeth's turn, asking her if she wants to throw it. But the queen refuses, asking if there's nothing he wants to do with her, suggesting something more intense and intimate. The man is surprised by the suggestion, but Elizabeth reaffirms her words, asking if there's a problem with that. She tells him that since he promised a surprise at the end of the month, he's been more distant. She questions if they're not a couple and what they can't do before that date. She states that he's too traditional. Lepping apologizes and confesses that he is indeed traditional. He adds that his original plan was to propose during a trip to the hot springs. Being romantic, he wanted to save that special moment. The queen, impatient, reveals that she can't wait any longer and wants a deep connection with him right now. Lepping, confused, replies that they're outdoors. He thinks that, as a normal man, if she asks if he wants to, the answer is clearly yes, although he never imagined his first time would be so wild. Then, the queen replies that it doesn't matter where, because there's no one else in that place. Hearing her, he says it's not that he can't do it, but asks if she really wants it to be there. He reflects that it doesn't matter, and that for Elizabeth, he must be brave. If he's too traditional, he'll be boring. Then the queen asks him, please, to tell her about his past, just when Lepping was taking off his clothes. They both look at each other, confused, revealing that they had very different intentions. The queen speaks and says she knows it may seem rude, but she really wants to know everything about him. She thinks to herself that spying on the past of someone of high status has always been a taboo. Lepping says she's right, because in a relationship, it's important to truly know each other. He adds that they've lived together for so long and never talked about their pasts. However, he pauses to ask if she really wants to know his story, warning that it's quite boring. He reflects that his previous life isn't worth mentioning, as he was just a regular office worker. But the queen firmly confirms that she does want to hear it. So Lepping begins to tell his story. In his previous world, he was an ordinary person. He grew up with his grandparents in the countryside and did all kinds of farm work. He admits that although it was a hard life, those were his happiest times. Eventually, he grew up and studied. He even attended the South China Agricultural University. Every time he had a break, he would return to the village to help his grandparents. That life continued until he finished university. Then, he moved to the big city for work. Little by little, he stopped visiting the countryside, and eventually, his grandparents passed away, leaving him completely alone. He remembers his routine became monotonous, work and home day after day without rest. Sometimes he thought he was born for that. He didn't like video games or anime. His only pleasure was watching short videos during his commute. But one day, for some unknown reason, he arrived in this world. He was completely shocked by what he saw. He remembers that upon arriving, a system appeared asking him to become the legendary hero, but he had absolutely no interest. The queen asks if he's done. He nods, saying it was a very simple life. Elizabeth reflects that it's not like that at all, that it's actually something pure. She believes the purity with which Leping lived allowed him to reach a spiritual level many will never achieve. She says that sometimes the simplest path is the most powerful. And after achieving sainthood, she too began to understand that principle. She thinks about that system and wonders why it wanted Leping to be her enemy. She believes that luckily, he possessed immense purity, and that's why its plan failed, creating their shared destiny. But then she contradicts herself, saying it surely wasn't something she could control. Then, Leping asks her about her past, wanting to know more about her life. The queen asks what exactly he wants to know. He replies, everything, from her childhood to how she became the demon queen who now rules the world. Elizabeth agrees, but warns him that her story is boring and that if he ever wants her to stop, he can interrupt. So she begins to tell her story, which began on the hero's continent in a time without magic. Long ago, that continent was a peaceful and prosperous world where all races lived together in harmony. However, with the rise of racial extremists, divisions started to spread. Conflict became inevitable. Little by little, the races split and fought for resources. Under that twisted ideology, half-bloods, symbols of racial union, were treated as outcasts and expelled, becoming homeless refugees. To survive, they settled in dangerous abandoned lands. Over time, they formed a new group known as the Demons. That forgotten land came to be called the Demonic Land. Though referred to as one group, demons were never truly united. In a place of extreme scarcity, looting, fighting, and crime were daily survival. Elizabeth admits that, for as long as she can remember, the demonic land was always like that. A young Elizabeth was in the middle of that chaos. One day, while holding a piece of bread, a larger demon insulted her for getting in his way and snatched the bread from her. She shouted at him not to do that and demanded he return it. The larger demon was about to hit her, but something unexpected happened. Elizabeth awakened her powers and, grabbing the demon's foot tightly, demanded her bread again. Then she explains that thanks to her exceptional genes, she had her first magical awakening at the age of 5. And in that lawless land ruled only by strength, by age 9, she ruled a district known as Witch Elizabeth. At 13, she personally founded the Kiet Crimson Moon mercenary group, which quickly became feared throughout the demonic land. Her fame grew so much that even rival forces paid them large sums, unaware of her true purpose. Elizabeth recalls that in each mission, she took the opportunity to infiltrate forbidden places and collect ancient magic books. Eventually, after finding the final piece on her 16th birthday, she had a second awakening. One so powerful it shook the entire hero's continent. After that, she conquered the demonic land by force and became the Demon King, launching her conquest plan and declaring war on all forces. Her power was so immense that the elves surrendered, the orcs surrendered, the dwarves surrendered. Finally, she reached the human capital and attacked it directly. During the battle, Elizabeth confronted the human king, accusing him of being a hypocrite who destroyed countless lives just to prolong his own. She told him his time was over. The king laughed, asking if she really would do it. He admitted his arrogance, but said he understood her, as she was the first to reach the supreme demonic rank. He spoke of his corpse magic and his plan to gather all his descendants. But before finishing his sentence, his head exploded, followed by his entire body, all before Elizabeth's eyes. Then, a familiar face approached. He asked if she was Demon Queen Elizabeth. Upon confirmation, he knelt before her, saying his name was Malfoy. and on behalf of the humans, they surrendered. That's how she ruled the world with absolute power, ending racial divisions with a firm hand. She led the heroes' continent and restored its glory, promoting equality, harmony, and prosperity. She confesses that even though her ideals were fulfilled, she never felt joy. She believes it's because she became too powerful and lost her connection with others. Or maybe because she no longer had any goals. And a life without purpose is an empty one. That's why, when she heard the prophecy that the legendary hero would come to challenge her, she felt hope for the first time. She trained hard, rebuilt her magical foundation, and improved her combat techniques, becoming the first to surpass the supreme demonic rank. That new level was named the Demon King rank. But when she waited for the hero, he never came. All her effort was a cruel joke. So she forced fate. She took the sacred sword and used its power to search. Until she found him. Back in the present, she finishes her story by revealing that this is how she met him. She asks him, slightly annoyed, if he knows how many years she waited in vain. Lepping simply offers a small smile and an apology. Then he adds that thanks to that, they didn't have to fight and ended up becoming friends. Elizabeth admits he's right. She reflects that she knows it was all part of his plan, that he never wanted to hurt her and let time dull her desire to kill him. Then, Lepping holds her by the shoulders, leans in, and says he wishes he had met her sooner. Surprised, she asks why he's acting like this all of a sudden. He says her childhood was too hard, and he wishes he could have been there to bake her the best cakes, sew her the prettiest dolls, and give her a happy childhood. The queen calls him silly, but asks if things aren't fine now. Leaping calls her by name and, holding her arms, confesses that from now on, she won't have to be strong alone. He'll be by her side for everything. He'll make every day the best of her life and protect her smile until the end of time. Those words make both their hearts race, creating a warm and romantic atmosphere. Little by little, they begin to lean in. But just before the kiss happens, Wankai appears barking. The little dog reflects that he managed to catch the frisbee. He had to invoke 3 codes and optimize over 70 million lines. But he finally passed the test. He thinks, excitedly, that his master will praise him. However, his system detects danger alerts. Elizabeth was furious. In the next second, she channels power into her foot and kicks the poor Wankai, sending him flying very, very far away.